Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
I was 37 then, but I'm telling this now at 56, and I can still hear the bailiff say, "All rise," like it just happened last week. My wife, well, soon-to-be ex, Nadia, sat across the courtroom with her mom, Vivian, who always looked like she just smelled something sour. Nadia had that same smug smile she wore whenever she thought she'd already won, like she'd planned the whole game and I was just catching up. My attorney, Marla Keene, leaned toward me and whispered, "I'm going to call a surprise witness." I stared at her. "You serious?" She gave the smallest nod and stood up like she had a grenade in her hand. "Your Honor," she said, calm and clear, "we request to call Landon Pruitt." The room shifted, the back door creaked open, and there he was, my cousin, Landon freaking Pruitt. His boots hit the floor slow, heavy, like he was walking underwater. He didn't look at me, eyes down, shoulders tight, like a man heading to his own sentencing. Vivian stiffened. Nadia blinked fast, once, twice, then her face just drained like she'd swallowed a mouthful of bleach. Her fingers clutched her sleeve, white-knuckled. The judge took off his glasses, pinched the bridge of his nose, and sighed like he'd been waiting for this shoe to drop since 9 a.m. The clerk shuffled her papers too loud, like she didn't want to be here either. Vivian leaned in toward Nadia, whispering something fast, hand clenched on her shoulder like she could control the damage through sheer grip. And me? I just sat there, hands folded, heart in my throat. I couldn't even blink, couldn't speak. I just kept my eyes on Landon while he stepped up to the stand like his boots were full of lead. Quick note: before listening, share in the comments which city or country you're listening from. Let's see how far this story's traveled tonight. Thanks. And now, let's continue. He raised his right hand, took the oath, voice low and slow like he was choking on it. He still wouldn't look my way. Not even a glance. The whole room had gone dead quiet. So quiet, I heard the buzz of the fluorescent light above us and the faint hum of the air vent in the corner. My stomach flipped. I didn't know what Marla had on him. Didn't know if he was about to help me or bury me for good. All I knew was that the next few minutes were going to break something wide open, and not just in the courtroom. I kept thinking back to when this whole mess started, before the lies, before the custody hearings, before Marla's steady voice in my ear. Back when I still believed my marriage had cracks, not craters. And I swear, sitting there in that stiff wooden chair, I remembered the exact moment when the first chunk of my life broke loose. A Thursday, late April, Spokane traffic, and the kind of kiss that burned its way into my memory like acid. But that came later. Right now, Landon sat on that witness stand, staring at the floor like it held all the answers, and for the first time in months, I saw fear on Nadia's face. Real fear, like she'd finally run out of ways to control the board. And right then, I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel anything close to victory. I felt cold, the kind that tells you the weather's turning and you're still miles from shelter. The judge leaned forward and said, "You may proceed." Marla opened her folder, and the papers inside barely made a sound. Landon blinked once, jaw tight, then raised his eyes for the first time and looked straight at Nadia. She came through the front door like nothing had happened. It was 9:40. I watched the digital clock flip while I sat at the kitchen table, lights off except the stove light behind me. She dropped her purse on the bench, let her keys jingle too long in the bowl, and kicked off her shoes like she'd been out saving the world, not lying straight to my face. I didn't move. I didn't even look up. I just said, "We'll talk in the morning." She paused for half a second, then walked down the hall like I'd said nothing at all. That was her game. Control the room by pretending there's no fire. I stayed in the kitchen till I heard the bedroom door click shut, then went and laid on top of the covers in Tate's room. Still had my jeans and boots on. Couldn't shake the image of Landon's hand in her hair, that fake little laugh she does when she's trying to be irresistible. The sprinkler next door kicked on just after 10. I counted every tick it made. That ticking became my heartbeat that night. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling and thought about everything I'd missed. The new perfume. Some floral crap she said was from a free sampler. Her phone suddenly having a lock screen. Her mom calling out of nowhere needing her to come over and talk 3 times a week, like they were a mother-daughter version of the UN. And I bought it all. By the time the sun cracked through the blinds, I was wired tight. I got up, made eggs, toast, packed the kids' lunches, all of it like I was trying to outrun the clock. Maya came down in her little purple hoodie, yawning and rubbing her eyes. Tate followed a minute later, dragging his dinosaur blanket across the floor. I gave him an extra squeeze that morning. Held on a few seconds too long. He didn't complain. He never did. Nadia came down late. Wet hair. That silky robe she only wore when she wanted something. No makeup, no eye contact. She walked to the coffee maker like I wasn't even there. I kept my voice low. I saw you at Landon's shop. Her hand paused over the mug. She blinked once, then set it down. Missed the coaster, which she never did. That told me plenty. Don't do this in front of the kids, she said. I didn't argue, just nodded and said, after school then. At 8:10, I dropped Maya at Lincoln Heights and Tate at the daycare off 27th. I circled the block twice before heading back home. My hands kept tightening around the steering wheel, loosening, then tightening again like I was trying to wring answers out of the leather. I walked through the door and found her at the sink, rinsing a bowl like she didn't have anything to hide. You want to say it? Or should I asked. She didn't turn around. It's not what you think. Then say what it is. She finally turned, leaned against the counter like she was on break. Her eyes were flat, empty. It's been going on for a few months. I didn't speak. Couldn't. My ears rang like I'd just taken a punch to the head. I didn't mean for it to happen, she added, softer now. I said, you think that makes it better? I'm late, she said. I blinked. Late for what? She didn't say it, just looked at me like I should already know. Then I felt it hit me like a second slap. You're pregnant? She didn't flinch, didn't nod, just said it like it was a weather report. It might be yours. I stepped back like she'd spit in my face. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. There wasn't a single word in the English language for what that sentence did to me. She looked down, fiddled with her sleeve. I can't leave him right now. You mean Landon? She didn't answer. I leaned on the kitchen table and finally found my voice. I want a divorce. No, she said instantly. I'm not giving you one. The kids need stability. You can stay here. Use the guest room. I barked a laugh, loud and bitter. You want me to sleep 10 feet away while you sneak around with my cousin? She didn't blink. I'm not uprooting the kids. That's not true. You're not giving up control. That's what this is. Her face changed then, sharpened. She saw I wasn't going to fold, and she didn't like that one bit. That night it got worse. I'd put the kids to bed early, told them Mommy had a headache and needed quiet. I stayed in the guest room, door cracked, TV off. Around 8:30, I heard the front door open. Then footsteps, then laughter. I came out and there they were, Landon and Nadia, sitting at the kitchen table like it was some kind of dinner party. Landon had the nerve to sit in my chair. Vivian walked in behind them with a Tupperware of banana bread and a smile like she'd just won a lawsuit. She didn't even say hello, just walked in like she lived there. Vivian said, Trent, be a man. Sign the house over so my daughter has security. Nadia slid a folder across the table. It's just a quitclaim. You'll keep your truck and your tools. I stared at all three of them. My stomach burned. My pulse hammered in my ears. I didn't touch the folder. Instead, I walked down the hall, grabbed the kids' backpacks, both birth certificates, and my dad's old metal tackle box from the hall closet. Packed it all in less than 10 minutes. I walked out at 9:15 with Tate on my hip and Maya clinging to my coat. We stayed 2 nights in a weekly rate place on Sprague, $86 a night, cash. Bed smelled like pine cleaner and sadness. Then I found us a 2-bedroom near 14th and Ray. $13.80 a month, rough paint, weak water pressure, but it had a working lock and no ghosts in the kitchen. That was all I needed to start over. The room on Sprague smelled like old carpet cleaner and mildew, but Maya liked the bunk beds, and Tate was just happy we had peanut butter. That first night, I kept my phone by the pillow and didn't sleep more than 10 minutes at a time. Every sound outside made me think Landon was dumb enough to come looking. He didn't. Next morning, I walked the kids down to the corner for donuts. It was cloudy, wind sharp. I didn't have gloves, so I held the hot coffee cup too tight just to feel something. Maya asked if we were going home soon. I told her this was home for now. Later that day, I drove over to the house when I knew she wouldn't be there. Packed up the kids' clothes, toothbrushes, their nightlight shaped like a bear. I left the furniture, left the dishes, left the photos on the wall. I didn't want a single thing from that kitchen, especially not the table where Landon had sat like he belonged there. The next evening, I met with Nadia at her mom's place. Neutral ground, if you could call Vivian's living room neutral. Beige everything. Her scentless fake candles lined the mantel like trophies for a game no one wanted to play. Nadia sat stiff on the couch, arms crossed, face pinched like she hadn't slept either. Vivian stood by the fireplace like a lawyer who'd never passed the bar. "I want the kids this weekend," I said. Vivian chimed in first. "You abandoned your family, Trent. Showing up now doesn't fix anything." I looked at Nadia. "That true? I abandoned them?" She wouldn't meet my eyes. "You left." I nodded slowly. "You're right, I did." Vivian stepped forward. "You think you can just come and go? Take what you want? This isn't some garage sale, Trent." "I didn't come for furniture. I came for my kids, and I'm not asking." "You don't have legal rights to custody yet," Nadia said. "Not until the court decides." "Then I'll see you in court." She flinched at that. Not much, but I saw it. The way her lip twitched. The way her foot tapped once on the carpet before she caught herself. That night I called a buddy of mine, Devin, from the warehouse. Told him I needed a lawyer. He said he knew a name. That came later. For now, all I had was a week-to-week rental, a thin mattress that squeaked every time I turned, and 2 kids I didn't want to lose. I went to Walmart, bought some cheap curtains, and a plastic drawer set so the kids had somewhere to put their socks. Maya made a sign for the door with marker. Fort Awesome. I taped it up like it was a lease agreement. But peace didn't last long. A few days after that little standoff at Vivian's, I got home from work and found an envelope duct taped to the apartment door. No stamp, no address. Just my name written in black ink, like it had been scratched in with a nail. Inside were 3 things. A picture of Nadia holding her stomach like a maternity ad. A note that said, "We're starting a family. Please don't interfere." And a copy of a quitclaim deed folded so the signature line faced up. It wasn't just tone deaf. It was war. I called her. Straight to voicemail. Left a message. "Don't tape anything to my door again. This isn't high school." Next morning I dropped Maya off at school and Tate at daycare. Same as usual. On the way back to my truck, I noticed a red sedan idling across the street. Tinted windows. Landon's plate frame from the shop on Illinois. He drove off when I looked straight at him. I started documenting everything after that. Wrote it all down in a spiral notebook I bought from the gas station. Dates, times, weird stuff. Just in case. Then came the hammer. Friday night, just after dinner, a sheriff knocked on my door. Real polite, older guy. He handed me papers. Temporary protection order. Said I wasn't allowed near Nadia or the house. Claimed I'd punched a hole in the wall beside her head. My ears went hot. "That isn't true," I said. "There's no hole. The one she's talking about. I patched that last winter when the doorknob went through." He didn't care. "Tell it to the judge," he said. I filed a response at the courthouse Monday morning. Spent $10 printing photos off my phone from February, showing the patch job. Even had a picture of the paint bucket I used. Good thing I'm the kind of guy who takes before and after shots of everything he fixes. It wasn't about proof. It was about principle now. The judge reviewed my response and tossed the emergency filing, setting a formal hearing we knew they'd never attend. That weekend, Maya got sick, just a stomach bug. But I stayed up with her all night. She kept asking when she'd go back home. I told her soon. I didn't know if it was true. Sunday night, I texted Nadia. Need a new custody schedule. You want to be difficult? I'll file first. She replied an hour later. You walked out. Don't cry now. I didn't answer. Monday, I left work early to meet with the lawyer Devin told me about, Marla Keene. That part's coming. But right before I walked into that meeting, something else happened. I got a text from Landon. New number. Just said, sign the house and nobody gets dragged into court. That was it. I took a screenshot, added it to the notebook. That was the exact second I stopped hoping we could handle this quietly. I didn't answer Landon's text. I just saved the number, labeled it threat number 1, and tossed my phone in the glove box so I wouldn't snap and call him back. Next day after work, I found myself parked outside Keene Law on Garland, staring at the building like it might explode the second I stepped in. Devin had vouched for her, said his cousin walked out with full custody in the house. That was enough for me to try. But I couldn't sit in some glass office with Tate bouncing in a chair, so I texted the number Marla's assistant gave me and asked if she could meet somewhere else. She picked the little coffee shop on 29th, the one with the chalkboard menu and a kid's corner full of half-broken toys. Marla walked in 5 minutes after we did. Black blazer, no frills, hair pulled back like she didn't have time for nonsense. She looked right at me, not around me, and said, Trent? I stood, shook her hand. Yeah, thanks for meeting here. She glanced at Tate, who was already building a tower with those big foam blocks. This works, she said. Let's talk. We sat at a table in the corner. I had my spiral notebook, but I didn't even crack it open. I didn't know where to start, so I just let it spill out. Short, broken sentences. Landon, the shop, the door hole lie. Vivian acting like a district judge in her own living room. Marla didn't interrupt. She just nodded now and then, and wrote everything down in this legal pad that had one of those stiff cardboard backs, like she'd been using it since law school. She asked straight-up questions. When did you see them together? April 24th. When did you move out? Next night. Who watches the kids after school? Me. Nadia used to pick them up twice a week, but lately it's all me. How much did you make last year? 74.6 with mileage. She kept writing. Not fast, not slow, just steady, like this was all going somewhere solid. Does Nadia's mother still have access to your old house? Yeah, spare key, and she uses it like it's her name on the mortgage. Marla looked up. What about the pregnancy? I swallowed hard. She said she's late. Told me it might be mine. Didn't sound too convinced. She tell you that before or after you mentioned divorce? Before. She said she couldn't leave him. Then dropped that little time bomb. Marla nodded like she'd heard it all before, and I guess she probably had. We'll file for divorce this week and request temporary orders. Do not sign anything she gives you, Trent. I don't care if it looks harmless. Screenshot every message. Keep writing in your notebook. And don't meet her alone without your phone recording or someone nearby. I sat back in my chair, chest tight. I don't want to be that guy. The paranoid one. She leaned in a little. You're not paranoid. You're in a fight. If you want custody, if you want the judge to take you seriously, you need a paper trail longer than your emotions. The retainer was $4,200. I didn't argue. I didn't blink. That night, I listed my dad's old 14-foot aluminum boat on Facebook Marketplace. It had been sitting on cinder blocks in my mom's backyard since he passed. Needed a new plug, and probably a full patch job, but a guy in Cheney took it for $12.50. Said he liked projects. I loaded it onto his flatbed myself. Felt like sawing off a piece of my ribs, but I did it. I used part of what was left to buy Maya a used desk from a guy on South Perry. $40 flat. Wobbled a little, smelled like lemon cleaner and stale gum, but it fit in her corner of the room. She ran her hand across it and said, "It's like a real school desk." That same day, I started parking 2 blocks away from the rental. Didn't trust Landon not to show up unannounced. I also changed the locks. Landlord didn't love it, but I paid for the hardware and did it myself. At night, I stayed up way too late watching Tate breathe. He snored soft, like a tiny dog. Something about hearing him sleep reminded me that not everything was ruined. At least not yet. Marla filed everything within 48 hours. Divorce petition, request for temporary custody, financial disclosures. We got a temporary hearing date, May 19th. It was circled on the calendar in thick red marker, Maya's idea. In the meantime, I started taking photos of everything. Maya's backpack on the kitchen chair, the kids brushing their teeth, lunches packed, gas receipts, anything that showed I was the one doing the work. I didn't know what would matter, so I just grabbed it all. Nadia sent a text saying she wanted to pick the kids up from school sometime next week. I said she'd need to give me a schedule. She fired back, "Don't be difficult." I didn't respond. Just logged it in the notebook with the date and time. I picked up a cheap laser printer from an office supply store and started printing copies of everything, just in case my phone ever got stolen or accidentally lost. Every night I added something new to the file. Every day I got a little quieter. Not sad, just focused. Like someone loading a truck before a long haul. By the end of that week, I had 3 binders. One for communication, one for receipts, one for the parenting stuff. Marla said, "Judges don't care how angry you are. They care what you can prove." So I stopped talking and started documenting. I was halfway through reheating leftover spaghetti when my phone buzzed again. Landon. New number. "Last chance. Sign the house over and we keep this out of court." I stared at it for maybe 3 seconds before I screenshot it, labeled it threat number 2, and sent it to Marla with 0 commentary. She responded 10 minutes later. "Thanks. Documented. Don't engage." That's when I knew. This wasn't about custody. Wasn't even about money. This was about control. They thought I'd fold under pressure if they hit hard enough and fast enough. I've never been the folding kind. The pressure started picking up in public, not just in my inbox. First came the whispers at church. Vivian had her own PR campaign going. She wore her sad eyes and hymn book face, telling folks I'd abandoned my family, saying I'd left my kids like a stray dog chasing a passing truck. Nadia doubled down on Facebook. Big paragraph about choosing happiness, breaking generational cycles, and stepping into her power. Looked like something stolen from a Pinterest divorce board. Couple of her friends commented heart emojis. One said, "So proud of you, babe." It made me sick. I didn't reply. I printed the post and filed it in binder 2 under public statements. That habit paid off. Those February patch photos ended up saving me in court. Work started to get messy around that time too. One of the big GCs I deliver to, Stratton Industrial, called my supervisor and asked if I was stable enough to manage their South Hill delivery. Word was, someone said I was in the middle of a messy domestic situation. I kept my mouth shut and my numbers up. Didn't miss a route. Didn't take a day off. Let my performance do the talking while the rest of my life burned behind me. At home, I kept things tight. Simple dinners, shower schedules, clean clothes, no room for chaos. I washed dishes while Maya read on the floor, and Tate used my forearm as a road for his toy dump truck. Then one night, Maya's teacher called. Said she'd drawn a sad picture during class. A stick figure in a corner. Another with a big mouth and lines coming out of it. She didn't say it was Landon, but I already knew. I waited till bedtime. Maya curled up with her soccer blanket, and I asked, "Was everything okay at Mom's?" She stared at the ceiling. I don't like Landon's laugh. It makes me feel yucky inside. That was all she said. That was all I needed to hear. I didn't push her. I just rubbed her back and whispered, "You're safe here, okay?" She nodded, but I could tell she wasn't totally convinced. The next day, I got another little gem. Nadia texted me a picture of a pregnancy test. 2 lines. Date scribbled in pen across the corner like some kind of stamp of authenticity. Underneath she wrote, "Let's act like grown-ups." What did that even mean? I stared at the photo for a full minute. Then I deleted it and wrote down the text in the notebook, just like everything else. I wasn't playing the reaction game anymore. That night, I pulled out my laptop, changed every single password I had, email, banking, even my Netflix. Then I went to a credit union off Grand and opened a separate checking account under just my name. First deposit, $610. That was all I could pull after paying bills, but it was mine, and it was clean. I took my name off the old joint account and left exactly 62 cents in it. That was my line. Marla called the next morning. "Any new drama?" I told her about the Facebook post, the test strip, the new bank account. She said, "Good. That's smart. Keep doing the kid stuff. Judges like stability because it's not about you or her. It's about them." So I leaned into that. Lunches stayed simple. Half a ham sandwich, apple slices, string cheese. I started tucking in little notes for Maya that said things like, "You're tough or you can do hard things." She didn't say much about them, but I caught her smiling once as she tucked one into her pencil case. Vivian made another move that weekend, sent an email to my work account, by mistake, CCing Nadia and claiming she was concerned about the children's welfare, said I was erratic, said I might need professional help. I didn't respond. I printed it. Binder 2, subsection, interference. At this point, it wasn't about custody anymore. It was about getting me to break, trying to get me angry enough to yell, desperate enough to sign, reckless enough to storm in and make a scene. I wasn't giving them that. I stayed on script. I stuck to the notebook. I kept the receipts and the bedtime routines and the scheduled pickups. I folded laundry with my jaw clenched and played Uno like it was the last game on earth. Because I knew what they wanted, and I knew I wasn't giving it to them. Court was set for 10 a.m., May 19th. I dropped the kids at school early, stopped by the gas station for a black coffee and one of those stale sausage biscuits, and sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes before I walked in. I wore the one decent shirt I had, the light blue button-down that didn't pull too bad across the shoulders if I kept my back straight. I'd ironed it the night before on a towel across the counter. The courthouse smelled like old books and nerves. I met Marla by the metal detector. She wore black again, hair tied up, binder in hand, cool and sharp, like she had courtroom blood in her veins. "You ready?" she asked, flipping through her notes. "Not even a little," I said. She gave a small smile. "That's fine. Just answer straight. Let them flail. You keep steady." Up in courtroom 2B, the judge was already on the bench when we walked in. I took my seat at the table and didn't look across the aisle until I heard heels. That's when I saw Nadia. White dress, curled hair, makeup done to the nines. She looked like she was auditioning for a perfume commercial, not fighting for custody of 2 actual children. Vivian trailed behind her, lips tight, clutching a notepad like she thought she was co-counsel. Nadia's lawyer was younger than I expected. Tan suit, shiny hair, and a tone that made everything sound like it was my fault just for existing. The judge started with the basics: housing, jobs, who had the kids, who picked them up from school, who took them to the doctor. I kept my voice plain. No emotion, just dates, facts, and what time the kids usually brushed their teeth. Nadia's lawyer took her turn and made me sound like a man without a doorframe, always coming, going, selling equipment in 3 counties with no real home for his kids. Said I bounced from rentals and worked irregular hours. Marla didn't raise her voice. She just slid a printed sheet across the table, my pickup calendar for the last 8 weeks, all color-coded, all clean. "This shows who's actually been doing the parenting," she said. The judge studied it for a full minute. No expression. Then he looked at Nadia and asked who had taken Maya to the dentist last month. Nadia blinked. I think it was... maybe me? I'd have to check. I didn't say a word. I knew damn well it was me. Maya had a cavity filled, and I sat in the waiting room with Tate watching YouTube videos of dump trucks. 5 minutes later, the judge read the order. Children will remain primarily with father during school days due to continuity of schedule. Mother will have Thursdays and alternating weekends. Nadia sat still. Didn't say a word. Didn't blink. She just looked over at Vivian, who scribbled something angry into her notebook like she was writing her own judgment. I exhaled for the first time in 20 minutes. Marla gave my arm a tap under the table. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, just nodded. We walked out into the hallway and I felt my hands again. It was like coming back from a long drive and finally parking the truck. Then, just before we reached the elevator, I felt a shoulder brush mine. I turned and saw Landon standing there in a gray button-up like he thought he belonged in the building. "This won't stand," he said, real low. I looked down at his shoes. Scuffed boots, bad laces. That was the only reason I didn't say what I wanted to say. Instead, I turned to Marla. "Let's go." Back at the apartment that evening, Maya asked if she could put her old soccer medal on the wall above her bed. I helped her find a thumbtack and stood on a kitchen chair while she directed where it should go. "You bet," I said. "Right here?" "A little higher," she said. "There. Perfect." That night, I slept. Really slept. First time in weeks it wasn't just dozing with one eye open, heart pounding. It felt like someone had finally turned off the generator in the back of my skull that had been humming nonstop since I walked out of that house. 2 days later, I walked outside to find a line carved into the side of my truck. Deep, angry, all the way from fender to tailgate. Like someone keyed it with a purpose. I didn't panic. Didn't lose my head. I took 7 photos. Different angles. Time-stamped. Then I filed a report at the station and printed 2 copies for Marla. Cost me $48 at the junkyard off Sprague to replace the busted handle they'd yanked half off. I didn't claim it on insurance. I didn't want to give anyone an excuse to say I couldn't afford to maintain my vehicle. Marla looked at the pictures and said, "Add it to the file. Stay clean. No reaction. Let them keep stepping in their own mess." So I did. I took the kids to the library that weekend. Let Maya pick 3 chapter books. Tate picked a DVD with trains and nothing else. We got ice cream afterward and sat on the curb outside 7-Eleven like we didn't have court hearings on the calendar and threats in our inbox. That Monday, I called the court clerk and confirmed the property hearing date. August 6th, 11 weeks away. Felt like a year. I hung up, looked around the apartment, messy, cramped, loud with kid energy, and thought, okay, I can hold the line. It was the last Thursday in June, sun dragging long across the pavement, air thick like it was holding its breath. I was carrying groceries up the stairs, one paper bag tucked under my arm, milk sweating through the handle, when I saw it. Note taped to my front door. Sharp black ink, crooked handwriting. No name, no signature, just, meet me, 8:30 p.m. Harold's on Trent. Come alone. I stood there holding that piece of paper, heart already beating faster, wondering what kind of stunt this was. I thought about tossing it, thought about ignoring it. But something about the handwriting, about the come alone part, made my stomach twist. I put the milk away, told the sitter I'd be back in 2 hours, and drove out to Harold's just before dark. It was the kind of place that still had ashtrays even though nobody smoked anymore. Booths cracked from years of elbows. Waitstaff that didn't ask questions they didn't want real answers to. I slid into my usual booth in the back. Waitress brought me a coffee without asking. "Your friend coming?" "We'll see," I said. He showed at 8:42. Hat pulled low like he was trying to dodge a camera that wasn't there. I saw him spot me, hesitate, then walk over like every step was work. Landon slid into the booth across from me and kept his eyes on the table. "She told me it was over," he said, voice low, almost hoarse, that she'd left you for good, that we were starting a life. I didn't say a word. Then last week, he went on, she said the baby might be yours again, switched it like a channel. I stared at him, letting silence fill the space he didn't have the balls to occupy. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an old phone. Not his current one. Some beat-up Android with a cracked screen. He slid it across the table. She had me help fake the door photo, he said. Told me if you looked dangerous, the judge would kick you out of the house. Said it was just temporary. I unlocked the screen. His hands didn't move. There were messages, screenshots, texts between him and Nadia, between Nadia and Vivian. Lines like, if he thinks the kids aren't safe, he'll sign. Pressure works. He's prideful, but not stupid. Use the test. He's terrified of losing them. And then a voice memo. Nadia laughing. I played it with the volume low, but it still landed like a dropped wrench. He'll sign if we dangle the kids long enough. He's all bark. I stopped it halfway through. My ears were hot. I felt that kind of rage that starts in the neck and moves up into your jaw, the kind that makes you forget you're in public. I flattened my hands on the table and looked at Landon for the first time. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I'm not proud, he said. I'm sick over it. I told her I was done, and she turned cold, like I didn't matter. If I get subpoenaed, I'll go. I'll testify. Whatever you need. Why now? I asked. He finally looked up. His face looked like he hadn't slept in a week. Because she's not leaving him either, he said. I'm the other guy now. That sat between us like a rotting fish. He didn't offer excuses. I didn't ask for any. We just sat there while the waitress dropped the check face down and walked away like she knew better. I didn't finish the coffee. I didn't touch the receipt. I just walked out and texted Marla from the parking lot. He'll testify. He's got recordings and messages. We'll bring the phone. I didn't even wait for a reply. Just drove back home in silence. That night, I laid in bed staring at the ceiling. No TV, no white noise, no hum of traffic. Just silence and the realization that the worst parts of the last 3 months weren't even the betrayal. It was how much energy I'd spent trying to stay decent while they played dirty. I wasn't happy. I wasn't vindicated. I wasn't even angry anymore. Just tired. Tired in a way that went all the way down to the bones. 3 days later, I got home from picking up a gallon of milk and found the front window to the apartment cracked open a half-inch. Not broken, not smashed, just lifted like someone had used a screwdriver on the lock. Inside, nothing was stolen. Nothing was broken. But the kids' dresser drawers had been opened. Tate's socks on the floor. Maya's journal flipped open to a random page and left that way. It was just messed with. I called the landlord, filed a report, then fixed the latch myself. Drilled in a new one, slid a broomstick into the window track, and moved both kids' beds to the far wall, just in case someone ever tried again. That night, I sat at the edge of the bed while they slept, and told myself I was going to make it to August 6th. Didn't matter what else happened. That court date was the line I was holding, the only one that mattered. And this time, I wasn't walking in there with just notes and binders. I had ammunition. August 6th arrived like a court summons. I'd been counting down to it for 11 weeks, but when that morning came, it still felt like stepping into a headwind. Courtroom 3B, 9 a.m. sharp. Property division, debts, assets, who keeps what. I'd already made peace with half the house in my truck. I wasn't there to win. I was there to finish. Nadia showed up 10 minutes late, white dress again, same as the last hearing. Maybe she thought it made her look pure. Vivian was right behind her, stiff-backed and smug, and her younger sister Kelsey came along too. Kelsey glared at me like I'd kicked her dog. I hadn't spoken to her since Thanksgiving 3 years back, and even then she'd been hard to like. Marla sat next to me with a banker's box under the table and a small smile. Quiet, confident. I could tell by the way she kept flipping her pen that she'd finally lined everything up exactly how she wanted it. The judge started reading through the file, listing our life like an itemized grocery receipt. 1,740 square foot ranch home in Spokane Valley, he read. 2 vehicles, joint savings, and a 401k valued at approximately $43,000. My 401k looked like a dying houseplant, but it was mine. Nadia's lawyer went first. He was smooth, I'll give him that. Words polished to a shine, all about fairness and equity. Said I should buy Nadia out at an updated market valuation, which meant wildly inflated, or just surrender the house altogether. Vivian nodded along like she was agreeing to pie prices at a church bake sale. I almost laughed. Marla didn't move until he sat down. Then she stood, slow and steady, and said, "Your Honor, before we discuss valuations, we'd like to call a witness." The judge raised a brow. "Proceed." "Mr. Landon Pruitt." The back door opened, and I swear you could feel the air leave Nadia's side of the room. Vivian's exhale sounded like a tire losing air. Kelsey whispered something sharp that made Nadia's shoulders tighten. Landon walked in, same hat, same boots, no swagger left in him. He took the stand without looking my way. The clerk swore him in, voice echoing off the wood panels. Marla started calm. "Mr. Pruitt, can you tell the court how you're acquainted with both parties?" He nodded. "Nadia's my cousin by marriage. Trent's my cousin by blood." "And were you involved in any communications concerning the respondent's character or actions during this divorce?" He swallowed hard. "Yes, ma'am. Nadia and Vivian asked me to help create evidence that would make Trent look unstable. I took a photo of a wall she said he'd punched. It wasn't true. She'd asked me to." Nadia shifted in her seat. Her lawyer put a hand on her arm, whispering fast. Marla went on, steady as ever. "Did you also participate in discussions regarding Mr. Douglas's parenting or property decisions?" Landon nodded again. "They talked about using the kids. Said he'd sign if we dangled them long enough." Nadia said that herself. I got it recorded. He reached into his jacket and held up his old phone. Marla took it, plugged it into a little speaker, and hit play. Nadia's voice filled the courtroom, laughing, confident, ugly. "He'll sign if we scare him enough." No one spoke. You could have heard the clock tick. I didn't look at her. I just stared at the grain of the table in front of me and thought, there it is, the whole damn truth. Landon kept going. He said the pregnancy was almost certainly his. Said she'd lied to both of us at different times. Said Vivian had helped write some of the fake text messages that made me look threatening. Vivian's pen stopped moving. Nadia's nails went dead quiet against the table. The judge didn't interrupt, just listened, chin resting on his hand like he'd been expecting this all along. When it ended, Marla handed over printouts, timestamps, my February patchwork photos, the keyed truck, the police report about the break-in. A full record, clean and organized, like she'd built a wall out of facts they couldn't climb over. Nadia tried to speak then, mouth open like she had one more lie left in her. Her lawyer put a firm hand on her wrist and whispered something sharp. She shut her mouth. The judge leaned back, took off his glasses, and said, "I'm making an adverse credibility finding on Mother." His tone was flat, final. You could almost hear Vivian's pulse from across the aisle. Then he read the decision, slow and deliberate. The residence will be refinanced or sold within 120 days. Equity will be divided 60-40 in favor of father, due to misconduct by mother. He kept going. Vehicles will remain with current possessors. Shared debts will be allocated 70% to mother's side, given evidence of a cash advance taken in March for $5,800 without joint consent. That one landed like a brick. I hadn't even known about that cash advance. Marla must have found it in the disclosures. Vivian started to stand up, clutching her purse like she was leaving early. The bailiff said, "Ma'am, please stay seated." She sat. I didn't look at any of them. Didn't gloat. Didn't need to. I just nodded once. Quiet. Done. When the gavel hit, It didn't sound like victory. It just sounded like an ending. The Tuesday after the hearing, I called the loan officer Marla recommended and started the refinance paperwork. It dragged through September like wet laundry, but by early December, the house was in my name. Payment landed at $1,432 a month. Tight, but manageable if I stayed under budget and didn't touch the credit cards. Marla looked at the numbers and said, "Let's not overreach. Keep your budget boring." "Boring's the goal," I told her. I moved the kids back in a week before Christmas. Maya stepped inside and looked around like she didn't quite believe it. Same kitchen, same floor creak by the hallway light switch, same living room window that fogged up in the morning. But it felt different. It felt like mine. I gave Maya first pick on bedroom color. She chose this soft green from a paint chip at Lowe's and stood in the doorway supervising while I rolled it on. She said it made the room feel like a garden. Tate insisted his room be just trucks. No color. Just trucks. I bought a cheap border sticker set online and wrapped dump trucks and cement mixers around the top edge of the walls. By late January, Nadia had the baby. A boy. She didn't call. Didn't ask if I wanted to know the name or come see him. I found out from a neighbor who saw the car seat in her back seat and asked if we were adding to the family. I sent a text that night. "Hope the baby's healthy." She didn't respond. I didn't expect her to. That same week, Landon sent a short message. Just one line. "I'm moving to Pasco. Sorry for all of it." I didn't answer. Not to be cold. I just didn't have anything left to say to him. Whatever part of me used to care what he thought was gone. Like a tire that finally blew and didn't make a sound. Nadia's visitation started back up mid-February. Thursdays and every other weekend. The first Thursday she was 22 minutes late. No call, no text. Just pulled up and waved like she was early. I handed the kids their backpacks and didn't say a word. Just noted the time in my binder and shut the door. 2 weeks later, I ran into Marla at the grocery store near 29th, standing by the tortillas. We both reached for the same pack and laughed awkwardly like we weren't two people who'd dragged each other through 6 months of war. She nodded at my cart. "Someone's cooking dinner." "Trying," I said. "Tate's on a chili kick. He eats like he's 30. We talked for a couple minutes. Nothing heavy. School supply prices, bad coffee, the way Spokane still couldn't decide if it was done snowing. I didn't bring up the case. Neither did she. A week later, after I dropped off my final check and the retainer was fully paid, I sent her a text. "Would you ever want to grab a burger? Nothing formal, just not here by the tortillas." She wrote back a few hours later. "After the decree's signed, lines stay clean." That made sense, and it told me she wasn't just being polite. The final decree came through on October 28th. I got the email from the clerk, read it through twice, then printed it and tucked it in a folder I labeled simply, "Done." That evening I took the kids for hot chocolate at the park, and we walked the Centennial Trail till the sky turned this deep watercolor pink. Maya kicked at leaves. Tate asked if he could build a fort out of sticks and named it Fort Truck Planet. After they fell asleep, I sat on the couch and texted Marla. "Decree's in. Burger still stand?" She replied 3 minutes later. "Friday, 6:30. I like onion rings." We went to this little place on Division. Greasy tables, baseball game on a tiny screen, the kind of joint where the ketchup bottle always feels half warm. She ordered a bacon burger with extra pickles. I got the same, just to keep it easy. We didn't talk about court. Didn't talk about Vivian or Landon or false claims. We talked about weird school fundraisers, the dog she wanted but hadn't gotten yet, and how Spokane roads felt like they were always mid-repair, but never fixed. She told me she'd been divorced 4 years, no kids, said she liked quiet and didn't trust people who bragged too much about how well they were moving on. When we walked out, the air was cold and clean, fall slipping into something colder. Driving home, it hit me. I hadn't thought about Vivian once that day. No mental arguments, no imagined comebacks, Not even the usual tension in my jaw. Just peace. The kind you don't recognize right away because it's been gone so long. Winter passed slow, then not at all. That's how it goes here. One day you're shoveling slush, the next you're sweeping pollen. I kept a snow shovel in the bed of my truck just in case, along with 2 pairs of backup gloves, one for each kid. I'd learned not to trust the weather or anything else that used to show up on schedule. In February, I saw Nadia at a gas station off Freya. It was a Tuesday. I remember that, because I'd just picked up Tate from daycare and was running low on patience and fuel. She was standing by the pump in a coat that looked too thin for the wind. Her face looked worn, not just tired, old in a way she hadn't been before, like something had drained her from the inside out. She looked up and saw me, didn't smile, just nodded like we were neighbors, not exes with a war behind us. I walked over, stayed a couple feet back. "How's the baby?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. "He's fine." She didn't say whose. I didn't ask. After a long pause, she looked down, then said, "I'm sorry." I just nodded. "I know." And that was it. That's all that needed saying out there in the wind with the pumps ticking behind us and sand kicking off the tires of every car that passed. No apology was going to fix what broke. But sometimes, acknowledgement is enough. A week later, Maya brought home a science project about soil pH and asked if we could test dirt from the front yard. I bought a cheap kit at Home Depot, and we spent a Saturday comparing dry patches to the garden bed like it was NASA-level research. Tate learned to button his coat without help and wanted to show everyone, me, his teacher, even the checkout lady at Safeway. I showed both kids how to check the oil in the truck and where to find studs in the wall before you hang something heavy. Maya rolled her eyes at first, but got into it when I let her use the stud finder and it beeped. Tate just kept calling it the wall beeper. Marla and I started seeing each other regular. We kept it slow. Not because we weren't sure, but because the kids were small, and I didn't want to be dumb again. Not the way I'd been before. Love's easy when it's new. The real test is what it looks like on a Wednesday after a bad day at work and a spilled juice box on the couch. She learned that Tate could name every kind of dinosaur, but hated strawberries. She learned Maya secretly hated glitter and pretended to like it because Nadia always bought glittery stuff. I learned Marla burned pancakes every single time but made chili good enough to shut a room up. One night in March, I got a long text from Vivian. It read like a monologue, something about what families owe each other, how, if we keep quiet long enough, people forget, and how children need unity more than victory. I didn't respond. I turned my phone face down and watched cartoons with Tate till he fell asleep in my lap, mouth open, one sock missing. In April, we packed sandwiches and juice boxes and drove out to Fish Lake for a picnic. Nothing fancy. Maya read her book in the grass. Tate threw sticks. Marla laid out a blanket, and we counted red boats that passed on the water. Nobody talked about court. Nobody said the word custody. It was just a quiet afternoon that didn't ask anything of us except to be there. That night, after the kids went down, I pulled out the big envelope from the top of the closet, the one with the court transcripts, printouts, photos, and copies of every lie that had almost burned my life down. I put it all in a fireproof box, labeled it with the kids' names, and pushed it to the back of the closet. I'm not saving it to rehash the pain. I'm saving it in case they ever ask. I don't believe in big speeches. Not anymore. I believe in packing lunches, showing up on time, and telling the truth without dressing it up like a holiday. I lost a lot. No question about that. But I kept what mattered. And if there's any revenge worth anything, it's this. When I turn the porch light on at 8:02 p.m., I know exactly who I'm turning it on for. What would you have done if someone you loved betrayed you that deeply? Fight to rebuild or walk away for good? If this story hit home, leave a comment, tell us what you think, or just write "great story." It really helps the channel grow. And for you, it's just one click to like and subscribe.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.